No. Oh.
Elizabeth and
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hello. My name is Catherine Bush. I'm the Associate Rector here at Calvary Church, and it is a delight to welcome you this morning to what feels like a poignant conversation, all kind of rushing again We're going to have a conversation this morning about the work of Room at the Inn. And we have a lovely group of people who are committed to that ministry and to that work to share some stories. To set the context for those who are in the room and those who are joining us online, and we welcome those who are joining us in this conversation in many, many ways. Some in our community are just now sharing a bit of news that a neighbor in our world was found to have died this morning in a park down the street, across the street from St. Mary's Cathedral. And this hits close at a time when we are preparing to hear the stories about a place that is wanting to offer home and hospitality and shelter, and to hear the story of someone who found no place to lay her head is hard, and we grieve. And we grieve for all those who are lonely and feeling lost in this moment and this time. So we take a moment to honor that and to honor those stories and those lives. And to remember that the work is real, and the people are real, and the lives are real, and the stories are real. And also to remember that God's love is real, and shelter is real, and the ways that we touch one another, the ways that we reach out, the ways that we respond are real and necessary and needed. And it seems a good thing to remember that there is a tangible proof of making God's love visible in downtown Memphis, and that there are ways in which people are responding to the needs of a broken world. When I was little, I can remember having that kind of childlike wonder and curiosity about encountering folks who had no home, and seeing big empty buildings and wondering why we couldn't just put people who had no homes in the big empty buildings. And it seemed really obvious to me that that's just the way it should work. And one of the things that's so lovely about a place and an organization like Room at the Inn is that they have taken that patently obvious idea and said, yes, let's do it that way. That seems to be a good thing to do. And so to hear the story of the work, because it's actually, although that sounds patently obvious and relatively simple, it's not simple, it's hard work, and it does take a lot of coordination and a lot of effort from a lot of different folks. And it's a lot more than just taking an empty building and putting people in it. We're going to tell the stories of how that comes to be and how that is, and particularly how a group of folks from Calvary are interested and engaged in making that work happen. We have a lot of stories to tell, so I'm going to stop talking and let the stories speak for themselves and turn it over to a wonderful panel of folks, each of whom will introduce themselves and tell their little piece of the story, and I'm going to let you know about this work. Thanks.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you so much, Catherine. I'm Betty Jo Dulaney. I wear two hats for Room in the Inn. One is I'm really honored and to be the Calvary's co-coordinator for our congregational shelter. So many of you are familiar with our Room in the Inn and the winter emergency shelter. So Todd Goforth and I coordinate for Calvary, and we host weekly. So Calvary has been one of the really anchor churches for Room in the Inn. There's not very many churches that host every single week during the season, which is a 5-month season. A lot of people say to Terry and I, you guys, you come every week. And we're like, no, we really don't. We don't come every week. It's a huge team of people. Todd is usually here if we're not here. And sometimes if all three can't be here, Christine will coordinate. It's Laura Rogers and Allison Lineveers coordinate. Like, other people are definitely pulling their weight. So the winter shelter season is how Room in the Inn started. I didn't know that Catherine Bush was the visionary that had this, but someone in Nashville thought the same thing and they did it. And then quickly that model has spread across the country, and it came to Memphis in 2009 when Lisa Anderson and her tiny congregation opened their doors to 4 guests sleeping in their parking lot, and literally had those 4 homeless folks sleeping in the parking lot just open the door, come in and have dinner and spend the night. By 2016, word started to spread, other churches started to become involved. It had grown to a point where that ministry needed a new home. They were running like out of the manna house, and we ended up moving right down the street at the First Methodist Church. And pre-COVID, up to over 50 congregations. So what did that look like? So we would have, a calendar. Calvary at that point was hosting every Sunday night, and they would send us 12, sometimes more, sometimes 15 guests, depending on the numbers. And so if you were homeless, you would go to Room in the Inn, be interviewed, and then you would be matched with a congregation that was hosting. And so we're so close, we could walk down or drive down in our cars just to transport this short way. So if you imagine a calendar, there might be 3 to 6 churches listed on each night. And so we would have cold winter nights with some churches stepping up. We would get over 100 people that we were able to house at our height before COVID. Of course, we've adjusted that since COVID, and now Calvary continues to host. If Room in the Inn has been hosting, we have been participating, and I just am so happy to be in a church that has that strong belief, because even through this COVID, Harry has helped us build partitions, and we've had bed tents, anything you can imagine to keep people safe, to be able to keep them off the street. So that's kind of how Calvary has fit into the winter shelter season. The other thing that people would say to Terry and I is, I don't want to spend the night. Is there anything I can do? Spending the night at Calvary is not as bad as it might sound, but you don't have to spend the night. So some people would come and make the bed. Some people would come and drop off dinner. Looking out into this crowd of wonderful parishioners, almost all of you have participated in this ministry by doing these various things. But some people wash the linens. It's just so many different ways to help. No, 2 people do have to spend the night. And there are no ghosts at Calvary. I promise. It's a very peaceful, holy place to spend the night. So that's kind of how the winter shelter season works. And it has continued to work even through the pandemic. Now, during the pandemic, we did stop doing winter shelter. You can imagine 12 people going to a different location every night with different volunteers. It's like a virus's dream. So we did pause our winter shelter, but I've been honored, I think since 2016, to be on the board of Room in the Inn. So that's my other hat. On the board of Room in the Inn, we had a meeting, and we were on Zoom, and the discussion was, if we can't do congregational shelter, we have to do something else, and we will. And so we started to partner with the Hub to provide the meals, many of the meals to there were 30 women staying at the Hub at a hotel in downtown Memphis. And we also began to place some of our chronically homeless guests and some of our medically fragile guests into hotels. Some of those people did have COVID, some had other chronic illnesses that the hospitals were becoming a little bit stressed to care for them the way they would prior to the pandemic. And so that is something that came up during the 2 things that always would come up at the board meetings what are we going to do when we have a newborn baby coming to spend the night at the congregational shelter? That model just did not fit the need. Calvary would get a mom with 3 little kids, and they would spend one night at Calvary, the next night in Germantown, the next night in Millington. It just didn't fit that person's need. And the other person, the other guest profile that it really does not help is a medically fragile person. I can't tell you how many people would be running out of the ER to get to room in the inn by 4:30, or they would not get a bed, and they'd still have their medical ID band on them with the fall risk usually right next to it. And so it just wasn't the best way to serve those guests. So April of 2021, a beautiful building came together by the Holy Spirit, was 100% working on this project. And so if Robin would show this video, it is the kind of where we are now in addition to our winter congregational shelter. Thank you.
We have individuals that are going somewhere where they need shelter. They need somewhere to be for the night. In Jesus' case, there wasn't any room. They made room for him, and they took him somewhere where he could have some shelter. But in this case, we want to give you room. We want to make room for you. We want to give you somewhere where you can be safe. We call it room in the inn because there's room here. There's room in our hearts. There's room in our family. And we're going to find a place to make room here just for you if that's what your desire and your need is.
This is the new campus for Room in the Inn Memphis. Is the Collins Chapel Hospital property. Room in the Inn has welcomed guests for a decade now and identified some gaps for the people that we were serving. And one of those big gaps was medically fragile homeless individuals who were being discharged from the hospital, and they wouldn't have a place to go. And we sheltered them in our congregations, but it wasn't ideal, and we knew that. So we began to dream about having a permanent recuperative care center. I had a career as a hospital chaplain. It is very difficult for me to imagine someone who is ill going back to a sidewalk, going back to an unsafe building, being cold, not having food. Nobody can get well in that environment, and so they go right back into the hospital. And many times their life is cut short because of that. And so we want to stop that.
It's going to fill that gap. Hopefully, while they're here, we're going to make some permanent changes and get them somewhere stable. But during that unstable time, we want to be that force that gives them just the time to get well and get better and not have to worry about where they're going to rest and eat for the night.
With Room in the Inn, you have an opportunity to go face-to-face with people that you might not have come face-to-face with in your ordinary life.
The plan is to move the Room in the Inn programming here onto this property and use a campus model so that all of our programming is in one place. And down this hall will be a recuperative care center for 21 individuals who are medically fragile. Upstairs will be a restricted family shelter program for families who are working with MIFA for rapid rehousing. We'll have 14 rooms upstairs for those families. And we'll move our day center here onto the property and coordinate congregational shelter seasons.
Your time is always needed. Some people may say, well, I don't have money to be a big donor or write a big check. We love volunteers. We love your hands. But also, in order to make this place run and work and keep the utilities on and pay our paid staff, we need resources.
By helping us to let our guests help themselves, what you're doing is you have the potential to change this community one person at a time, one family at a time.
We know that there's a need. You know, we just want people to do the same thing that the wise men did. They followed that star to see the Messiah. We just want them to follow their heart so that we can make a better place for people in this community, in Memphis at large.
Good morning. I'm Jay Coggin. I'm also a member of the board of Room in the Inn. This video said a lot, so about what's going on there, but I'll just touch on a few things. My journey with Room in the Inn started, as probably it did for many of you, with coming to the emergency shelter here at Calvary. I think the very first time that we came, we thought, oh, this will be a good thing to do. Betty Jo wants us to come. We'll be happy to to go. And I think my daughter was 7 or 8 at that time. And that night there was a family there that had a daughter same age. They ran off in the corner and were playing shyly together. And I sat down and started talking to the mom, and she said, it's just, it's so nice to just have a chance to breathe. And that kind of has stuck with me and really meant so much about what this organization is. It's just really giving people a chance to breathe. So, at the time when that was just, when it was the emergency shelter, every time that we came, I would look at people, and whether I connected with somebody or not that night, I would always remember, like, I'm giving everybody in this room, I'm playing a very small part in giving them a chance to just take a breath and to be safe for one night. To be able to have time to really focus on themselves, on recovery from whatever they're going through, and have a chance to really just breathe. So that was how I started. We've volunteered, my family's volunteered periodically, and was honored to be asked to be part of the board, to be even more involved. And this facility that you saw, I don't even know that the video does it justice. It's amazing. And the work that the staff people that work there all the time are doing amazing work every day. The volunteers that come in are doing amazing work every day. Really giving people not just a chance to breathe, but a chance to really get back on their feet, and a chance to really transition into something much more stable. So I definitely encourage all of you to, if you ever want to go visit the building, talk to Betty Jo, talk to Terry, talk to me. We'll be happy to take you over there, look around, chance to kind of expand your involvement with Room in the Inn, because as Betty Jo said, I know many or most or probably all of you have been involved in some way with the emergency shelter here, but this facility and what they're doing there is really incredible. And the video talked about, and Betty Jo touched on the big ministries that are going on there, but the opportunity to give families this stable place where they can really work on themselves and transitioning into something more stable and is incredible. And I think that the thing that is really most exciting to me that's going on there is the recuperative care, because how difficult it is when you or a family member or anyone who has a stable home gets out of a hospital and has to deal with recovery. Just imagining how that would be, having to go out onto the street and try to recover in that way. This is unbelievable work that is going on over there, that's giving people a chance to recover from medical issues and get some stability. So I won't spend a lot of time, because there are a lot of people that want to get up here and talk and have some incredible stories to share with you. But I would encourage everybody to, please, think more about this ministry, talk to any of us, and, continue your involvement.
Good morning. I'm Terri Dulaney. I get to have the best of both worlds. I get to volunteer here in our congregational hosting, but I also get to volunteer on campus. So 2 days a week, I go over and have story time with the toddlers. It is such an incredible opportunity for me to sit down quietly and gain the trust of a mother who says, you know what, I just need to do my laundry. Can my child sit with you? And that they feel like there is an adult that is safe to leave their child with. And we'll sit by a fish tank and read our stories. And the mom comes back and she says, I got to do my laundry. I got to make a phone call. And I think sometimes we take that for granted. And I also get to host monthly birthday parties. at the Room in the Inn location for both recuperative care and for the family inn. And just recently, there was a 16-year-old boy that has been there for a couple of months with his family. And he didn't want to come down to the birthday party because he thought it was kind of a silly thing that he had never had a birthday cake. And it was just such, so his mom called him and said, you have to come down here, because he happened to have a birthday that month. And he, like any teenager, didn't want to be in the room. And we gave him his birthday cake, a little cupcake, and we sang happy birthday. And the next time I came for the next monthly birthday party, he pulled me aside and said, no one has ever made sure that I had a birthday cake. And I thought, just something that simple. So that's one of the things. And just a couple of little stories. When we first started hosting here, there's a little bit of nervousness. How is it going to work? Are we going to be able to meet the needs or whatever? But we had, and I hope her family does not become upset with me for saying it, but the Connells were here. And little Kate, little bitty thing, her bow in her hair was bigger than she was, and she's walking around with one of our little carts delivering desserts. And we had, I think at that point, 15 guests. It was maximum. So she's walking around with her little cart, and we were very conscientious to make sure we could see everyone because we had some small children. And a gentleman that was a guest pulled me aside. Again, it's funny how you get pulled aside. And he said, do you know that little girl? And I said, yes, sir. I said, is there a problem? And he looked at me, had tears in his eyes, and said, that little girl called me sir and looked me in the eyes. And he said, there are so many grown-ups that won't call me, or, acknowledge me, much less a small child. And then I watched her, and she's just bebopping around, speaking to every guest. And I was just thinking, something as simple as acknowledging another presence, and looking in their eyes, and the dignity associated with saying sir. It's just, and that this child didn't have to be taught that. She's growing up in that environment. So it just really, touched my heart. I always have a place in my heart for children, and that just made it even, something so simple. And just recently, I was here on Christmas night. And with all of the busyness of the Christmas season, I kept thinking, it's just one more thing I have to do. I have to spend the night, and I was kind of, wondering what it was going to be like, because I felt guilty. I'd just spent Christmas Day with my family, and now I'm going to spend the evening with, people that didn't have that opportunity. And there was a mother here, and she had her 2-year-old, and the 2-year-old was just running, back and forth in front of the bathrooms, back and forth, and the mom just said, I just need to lay down. And she tried to we gave her the crump parlor, nice, quiet little thing. Our guests almost fight over that spot because it's so cozy. And I said, well, maybe she could come out here and read. And we left the door open. Thank heavens for our beautiful library and the children's section. And we found some little books, and we sat and read for probably 30 or 45 minutes. The mom dozed a little bit, and then it was time for her to go to bed. 2 weeks later, I was over at Room in the Inn, ready to read my little stories, and who was there but the little girl and her mom? So it was great being able to see the transition from congregational hosting to Room in the Inn to the last time I was there. I was ready for her special little book, and she wasn't there. And part of me is always a little sad, and I always wonder, kind of, how are they doing? But I'd found out they just received permanent housing. So it's like I got to follow one family and see all 3 stages. And so, I take everything kind of personally, and it just made me really happy to see that. And another thing, when we host here, if the weather's beautiful, we walk down to First United Methodist to pick up our guest. And it happened this year, and I was walking back with our guest, and they're carrying their belongings in tattered backpacks or trash bags or something like that. And I asked one of the gentlemen, I said, can I carry something for you? And he said, yes, and he handed me his trash bag. And I threw it over my shoulder like all the other guys, and the women, and was walking down the street, and it was a lovely evening. And I thought, this is going to be a great evening. And a person drove by in a car, honked their horn, and yelled at our group, "Get a job." And I thought, to be able to experience that, and to know that I experienced it for 5 minutes as we were walking down the street. But as Betty Jo says, to think about somebody that lives that 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, it's just, once you put a personal experience with it, you can't unsee what you've seen. So again, if you want to go over and see the campus, I would love to give you a tour, because it is a beautiful place. It is so calm. It is so relaxing, so professional, and so needed. So come see me.
Good morning. I'm Todd Goforth, and I co-coordinate with Betty Jo here, Room in the Inn, on Friday or Saturday nights, and it's been an honor. I guess I've been doing this for about 4 or 5 years at Calvary. It all started with me with, I think, making breakfast bags and bringing breakfast bags for the guests on the Sunday mornings, but like I said, it's been a great experience, and there's a job for everybody, is what I say. Whether you like to cook, or you like to make beds, or you like to wash or do laundry or whatever, we've got a job for you. But I guess the thing I want to really kind of focus on is, when I first started years ago doing this, having little knowledge of the program, in my head I thought all of this was about, they need food, they need clothing, they need shoes, that type of thing. And the longer I worked with the program, what I came to see was, they really needed my presence, is what they really needed. They needed kindness. They need somebody to sit with them and have a conversation. So that, to me, is what has really kind of changed my view and direction with this program, because, like you said, yes, everybody plays a part. We need, your entrees, that type of thing, but we also need you to be here with the guests as well, because I've learned over the years that that's really what they need. And I always feel like if they can sort of get this systematic kindness, that we really can make a difference for so many of these. And so many of our guests, and Betty, Jo, and Terry can tell you, is we have been very fortunate. They have got into permanent housing, or they have gotten needed care, because, like I said, we continue that kindness each and every week. And a lot of these guests that come, like I said, they are returning each week, so we do get to know them. It's not what I call you. Some of them you do see once, but a lot you do see over and over each week. So that's really, like I said, to me, the important part of Room in the Inn is our presence, being here with them, communicating with them, sitting with them, having a meal. That's just as important as bringing that entree or making the beds or that type of thing. So the other thing I just want to kind of touch on is, over the years with Room in the Inn, like I said, we started out years ago, we had about 15, and now the maximum is about 8 guests at one time. But it's really kind of given us a chance to, again, to sort of zero in on the relationship piece, because, again, that's the foundation of all of this. It's like I say, we can do all this great stuff all day long, but the foundation needs to be the relationship. So that having the 8 guests per week here has really, really made a difference for us here at Calvary. So, and you meet all sorts of guests along the way in the program. Like you said, I've been shocked to know that a lot of these people, they do sleep on the streets at night, but we do have people that occasionally will drive a car. A couple of weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, we had a family that was really passing through that had a landscaping business. They had nowhere to go. So they pull up in the parking lot with their landscape equipment. They were from Alabama, and we take in the mom, the dad, the children, everybody, and accommodate for the night. And it's just the hospitality piece. You will see so many of these guests are so appreciative of what we do for them. And when they leave, that thank you so much, for what you've done for us, it's always that piece that is very, very rewarding. So like you said, it's not always, I tell my friends, it's not always the ones you think would be here on a Friday or Saturday night. It's everybody from, like I said, driving, no place to go, or you got a business, I still don't have a place to go. So we accommodate everybody, we love everybody, and we give that kindness to everybody. So again, that's pretty much my experience over the years with Room in the Inn, and I'm so glad Betty Jo has promoted me to co-coordinator so quickly over the years. But anyway, it's like I said, it's a great experience, and as everybody else has said, if you have any questions or anything, we're more than happy to take your questions and give you answers, but we would love to see all of you, experience one of the nights at Room in the Inn. So thank you.
Hello, my name is Juana McCoy, and I don't know, I've probably been hanging around Room in the Inn for, I don't know, several, maybe 4 or 5 years, something like that. And I would like to share with you two extremes. Some people, that wherever you go, whether it's a party or it's a meeting or whatever it is, you usually find someone who sort of stays with you. They make an impression. You sort of, they just stay with you for some reason. So I was going to share with you two absolute extremes of people who are still in my heart. At Calvary, there's a lady that if you've been around very much, you know her, and it's Libby. And she's a large woman, and she has mental issues, like a lot of us. And she wears about 3 coats, several hats, I don't know how many sweaters. And one night we were here, and it was a couple of weeks before the ice storm. And it was a particularly cold few days there in the 20s. And so she comes in, and she has more bags, trash bags, than she could possibly carry. So Todd had quite a conversation with her of, why don't you leave a few up here so that you can go and easily have dinner? She wasn't about to part with them. Those were her things. Finally, Todd had a vision, and he said, why don't I take some of these and I'll lock them in the closet? Well, she bought that. So she came in, and she was sitting over by herself, and I went over and I said, Liddy, did you sleep outside last night? And she said, yes. She says, I was right out here in the back of Calvary. And I looked down and I said, Liddy, it's 20 degrees. Where are your shoes? She said, I don't have any shoes. So those of us who hang around places like Calvary and other places that, assist homeless people, we carry very strange things in our trunks of our cars. So I said, okay, what size do you wear? And she said, an 8. I went, yes, 8. So I'm probably the only person who doesn't like walking shoes, running shoes. I just feel like they're big on my feet. So I decided that I was going to be normal. So I buy a pair of really, really nice ones. And I wore them a couple of times, and I just felt like I had skis on my feet. So I said, okay, to the trunk. So I stuffed socks in them, put them in the trunk. So she says, she wears a size 8, I wear a size 8, so I said, ooh, we're in business. So I go out to the car and I bring them in. And the thing that just struck me was that her reaction was no reaction. And I said, Liddy, okay, put your foot up here. And I put the socks on her, put the shoes, tied the knot. It's been a long time since I've tied somebody's shoes. And for the other side, put it up there, put the socks on. And again, the reaction was no reaction. And that just gripped me. And what it said to me was, she needs us. She needs us. She and a lot of other people like her need us. And what that also said to me was, and this was the affirmation that she gave me, was keep going. Keep going. Every time I go, I come home with a gift. Every night that I go, I always come home with a gift. And that affirmation that she gave me that said, keep going, that was a great gift. That was because it affirmed what we are doing and said, keep going. I'd like to also share with you absolute opposite situation I had over at the Ayers facility. And I was sitting with 3 men who were there for recuperative care. And the man who was sitting next to me was the funniest man I have ever met. I have not laughed with Jay Leno or any of those people like I laughed with him. And he wasn't telling jokes. He was just talking. And I laughed and I laughed until, you know that laugh where your tummy hurts? And I just couldn't stop. Now, by the way, as an aside, I'm a vegetarian. So take that information and sort of put it to the side. I'm a vegetarian. And I remember our dinner that night was chicken, mashed potatoes, and green beans. I remember. So after absolutely laugh, I can't tell you how much I laughed. This guy, if we had put him into stand-up, he would make a lot of money. He was so funny. So, okay, after dinner, I'm cleaning up the tables, taking the plates. This guy made a vegetarian eat meat because I was so engrossed in having that instance with him. And I can tell you, I had a good time. And that was a gift. That was a real gift to me. And that's, so you see, I mean, the people we serve are so varied, so come from so different lives. The other night here, I was sitting at a table and this man pulls out his laptop and he's just working away. But he's eating with us. So you never know. It's not, we want you to come and join us. And it's not a modeling experience. Sometimes you might even meet somebody who makes you laugh so hard that a vegetarian eat meat.
Okay, 10 or 15, okay. I didn't know if we would come back around to me getting to tell a personal experience. So I've been thinking about this for the past 3 weeks, knowing that I was going to share a personal experience, and it was really hard to whittle it down to one that I wanted to share just because I have so many experiences. But I thank all of you for sharing yours. I just love to hear it because it's like so many times when we give, we receive more than we give. At the Ayers location, in the recuperative care unit, they have referrals from every hospital in the city, Methodist Germantown, Methodist North, University, Baptist, but one referral site that I did not see coming was the West Clinic. And so currently we have two gentlemen there who have been referred from the West Clinic, homeless with cancer. One has esophageal cancer. And he came to us really early, and it's March now, it was August. And we were, it was not during the winter shelter, and so Calvary was going and taking dinner every Saturday night. We switch our nights, and y'all have to watch that Sign Up Genius closely. But we were going every week and going to the Ayers location and taking dinner and serving family in and recuperative care. And the first time that I met this gentleman with esophageal cancer, he wouldn't even make eye contact with me. So when we first arrive, I always, kind of scope the kitchen, turn on the ovens, and then go out, greet the staff. So the facility is staffed 24 hours a day because it's a residential facility. The guests do not pay anything to be there. And there are 3 meals a day provided. Some of it is the congregations who didn't feel comfortable to do COVID are providing the meals, but we were going weekly, and I would go when I'm not serving dinner just because of various things. And so I met this gentleman. He would not make eye contact, just week after week, so difficult to get a relationship with him. And he seemed to slowly be improving, and the other recuperative guests had really taken him under their wing. So Terry and I do not do everything. Somebody else had prepared the meal, and one of the other guests came and said, "Do you mind, making this box of macaroni and cheese? He can't eat what you brought, what we have." So we're like, "Oh yeah, well, what else? It has to be soft." And so that night passed, and then congregational shelter started, and I'd been back a few times and seen him, and he'd kind of looked and wouldn't just stay in his room, would come out and say hi, but still not able to really, sit down and talk. And the kitchen manager just had a baby, so they invited the congregations to come back and help support the weekend meals, and so we'd signed up. And now that I knew that he was there, we were going to take food he could eat, and so I can't cook as well as my sister can, and so she made red beans and rice from scratch, and really amazing. And so we took the red beans and rice, and he came out and was like, "Who made the red beans and rice?" And I was like, "Oh, did you enjoy it?" And he's like, "Yes, I did. Can I get more? I don't mind. I'll pay for it later." It was the Super Bowl night, and he had gained 50 pounds. I mean, when I met him, they really thought he was going to be there a couple weeks and then go on to hospice. His doctor has called Lisa Anderson and said, "I don't know what you are doing, but he's doing great. He's every expectation for his health, he has exceeded it." And it's it's life-giving what you can do when you give people just the love the way that we all deserve to be loved. And so that gentleman, he had a stent in his esophagus, and they're taking it out. He's really, it's a miraculous recovery. So I think that our theme is Christmassy. I know it's Lent, but there is room in the inn, and I think that that's one of the things that's drawn me so strongly to Room in the Inn is there is no barrier. We have no barrier. Whoever you are, you can come to Room in the Inn. If you can live in community, you can. Whoever you are, you're welcome at Room in the Inn. So he's doing great, and they're actually trying to place him, I think, into housing. The other thing, just a note, is once people leave the facility, and move into the permanent housing, we have case managers who are following and keeping up with all of those guests. And whenever we are the nonprofit of the summer or whatever at the Breadbirds, all of these other people who have graduated come back. And it's so, so nice to get to see people begin to thrive. So, get Catherine back. Yeah.
I just want to say, when Betty Jo was telling me the story about this gentleman when we met a few weeks ago to talk about this morning and how the conversations would go, what I've been calling this whole series for Lent is this Practice What You Preach series, and tying the conversations to our Lenten preachers. And of course, this is all because Lisa Anderson is coming on Friday to be in our pulpit as part of LPS. But when we were having this conversation, actually sitting in a pew in the church, and Betty Jo was telling me the story, and just with the seamlessness with which you told me the story, and then went straight to the gospel about the lost sheep, and seeing how that is what we are doing. That is what this ministry is doing, and that is what is so essential for all of us, whether it's Room at the Inn or whatever the ministry is, that we don't just talk about things here on Sundays and then go our merry way, but that we see that the gospel stories that we hear and the message of Christ and the parables are lived out in our experiences, and that then we connect the dots and we say, this man could have been a lost sheep, and we went and we found him when we gave him soft food when that's what he needed, and found him a place to stay. And so just to see that that sermonizing and pulpits and guests who float through our doors, and Lisa's a local person, but whether the person comes in from New York City or Ireland or wherever they come from, that these stories are getting into us and shaping us, and then shaping our lives, and that was what we're doing here. That's what we're doing. So I'm so appreciative of the five of you for sharing your stories, and for being a witness to that, and for the countless other stories that I know are in this room, and your experiences, not just with Room at the Inn, but with so many ways that your lives have been shaped at Calvary, and that you are then living out that love in the world. We're going to take a few minutes now, and I'm going to go get the microphone from Sam and give you a chance to either ask some questions or tell some stories or make some comments, as we have just a little bit of time to hear from those in the room, or Robin may share a comment or two from those online. Who's got something to say?
What are the numbers of COVID in the area?
The COVID numbers in the area? I'm not sure that I know those off the top of my head. I know that they have been going down recently, which is encouraging, but that we're still being cautious and careful. I don't know if anyone else has numbers that they know. 396, Pat says, active cases. Thank you for that. Good details, data. Other comments or questions for those who want to know more or say something about our Room at the Inn guests and experiences? Yeah, Kate.
I loved all of your personal sharings. Thank you so much. But do you have any kind of written information? Do you have brochures or anything that you can pass out so we can see the whole scope of it and know how to respond to the various needs?
I don't have any brochures, but if you look at their website, Room in the Inn Memphis. So Room in the Inn started in Nashville. And so if you look at Room in the Inn, it's Nashville. So Room in the Inn Memphis, and there's lots of information. But in the past, just 1 year, we've served 355 people. Our staff has grown from 1 with Lisa to 12 full-time staff and 10 part-time staff. And the goal, as it mentioned in the video, is to have up to 21 recuperative care guests and 14 families. And then, of course, the goal for the emergency shelter is to house anyone who comes, which, as hopefully as COVID declines, more congregations will host again. But we've really not quite met the meet. We do turn guests away from the, so that's why it's so critical that different congregations host, but we do have to turn guests away during the week from the emergency shelter. So I don't know if that helps, but the website's very detailed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any connections with the mental health system? Are the caseworkers coming out and working with you when you have the mentally ill ones?
I just know from being there that, yes, they are working with and going out and doing some books.
Keeping some sort of list on that. I'm working with the director of Alliance Healthcare to try to get her to get some outreach workers to try to pick up on the ones that you can't shelter.
I would definitely say get in touch with her and maybe put you in touch with the caseworkers that are working in that area.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I would get in touch with Room in the Inn and they could put you in touch with the people that are kind of working in that area.
Okay.
But I feel like it's a population we're not going to avoid or, I mean, we work with everybody.
Okay.
That was really well done. Thank you.
And I think they deserve a standing
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. But I love Calvary. This all started with Emily Smith, Terry, Bailey Leopard, and I thought there might, no, that was it. The three of them. I got drug into this, right? And Eileen said, go out and then bring this back. And those three were so passionate about bringing it back. But I love our church, that we have room in our inn to participate in this. And just every year at the end of the season, I will go back and look at all of the different names who have contributed, because everyone has a part to play. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much for inviting us to do this. Yeah.
Now, you knew this was coming, didn't you? Where it says give. We need your help to do more programs. So, everywhere you go is, give, donate, but we also have that word, and there's so many things that we need and that we need to keep doing, and that we can get that we need that we don't have. So when you see that word donate, take it seriously.
Thank you all very much. Let us go forth in joy to love and serve the Lord.